Awesome. All right, let's get it started. So let's start really broadly. Katie, Tammy, in your view, when you're looking at, the cultures in your organization today, what really made your workplace a great workplace for your employees?
Him, you want to go or you want me to go?
It's up to you. I've been doing the
Um,
talking while you're away, so
oh,
you
you
have
were
it.
filling in for me. Okay. Well, I think the most important thing that is the foundation for all of this before you even get into like the nitty-gritty of what to do and how to execute is thinking about trust and that great workplaces are rooted in trust. So trust that you've hired people who will make decisions every day that reflect your values to their fellow team customers, to their communities. And for both sides, for leaders to trust that they've hired the right people and that they've built the right teams. And then for those teammates to trust that I feel valued here. I'm here for a reason. I am doing work that I can be proud of. And that communication too, that you trust that you will get honest feedback in a way that is respectful and rooted in dignity. And also, I think an easy way to kind of frame that is like if you think about a really toxic workplace that you ever worked in, so much of that is rooted in a lack of trust. So it's micromanagement, not trusting that things will get things done. It's gossip, which is always rooted in trust. And it's just important to know that you feel emotionally safe. Psychological safety, I think, really translates in a lot of different ways. Um, so I would say before you even think about kind of big projects or big systems or big assessing that level of trust.
Yeah, and I think that that is key, right? You can do all of the right things, but if you don't have that trust there going both ways, nothing's actually going to work out for you. So 100%. Tammy, anything you wanted to add to that as well?
Absolutely. So I would also say it's feeling valued. It's feeling important that what I do means something. Because when you think about, and again, I'll pardon the sports puns, sports is my life. Every player on the team is important. If one player is not there, it's extra work for the other players, or sometimes the team just has to forfeit. So for us, it's really important that every single team member knows that they're valued part of the organization, that their work means something, not only to each other, but to the guests and even to yourself. It becomes a prideful thing to say, hey, you are important and we need you. And that just really truly speaks volumes. So we go over the top to be sure that every single one of our team members, again, as best as we can, talking about the fact that we're separated across the country and how do you really make that team member feel valued and know that they're a part of the organization. And I would say 2.0 to that would be good communication. And that speaks to what Katie said as well. Communication in a positive way, in a respectful way. Even when you're coaching somebody, it has to feel safe. It can't feel like you're being, attacked or micromanaged. It's okay to coach people and coach people in a way that says, how do you be better every time? Because a good coach, especially when we think back to when we were little, they put their arm around you and they whisper in your ear. They don't embarrass you. They don't call you out. And you have that private conversation and you end that conversation feeling like they gave you value, not that they took something away from you, that they gave back in a way that's going to make you better moving forward.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll level with you. I didn't play a lot of sports as a kid, at least team sports, but individual sports, I can say there were definitely times where a coach came up and was like, all right, Kaylee, you got to do XYZ thing to make sure we really nail this. And you know what? It was all you needed to hear to actually do it. And it comes back to what Katie said too, is you trust your coach enough to take that feedback and take those things forward, you're going to be better overall from actually hearing that as well. So again, Tammy, I think you're spot on. Dan, anything you wanted to add to any of this as well?
Yeah, the thing that I just from a measurement perspective, I think what you're hearing from Tammy and Katie really aligns really closely with how we think about employee engagement and sort of like our, I guess, our scientific definition. So I thought maybe I could share that just to help frame the discussion because what we look at are really three dimensions that kind of define an engaged employee, which is that, employees are going to be motivated to give their best. they're going to be committed to the organization, so they're not looking for another job. And they're kind of proud enough or enjoy the culture enough that they're willing to recommend your workplace to friends and colleagues. And so those three things, when you think about engagement, it really is a mindset. And that's kind of what it means to be in that mindset of engagement. So it's you know it's certainly it's do people like it here? But it's that, are they going above and beyond? Are they excited to be there? Are they willing to be an advocate for you as an employer? And when those three things come together, that's when you really know you've got something special going on. And it absolutely comes down to trust and communication and appreciation, recognition, which we're going to talk about, and feeling valued. And so again, I can help unpack that in more detail, but I thought just kind of at least framing the measure, what we actually measure would be the other kind of ingredient to put on the table.
Yeah, and Dan, that kind of does bring us into our next question. When we're looking at, surveys and measuring, are there any patterns that consistently show up as you start to analyze these surveys and great places to work?
Yes. And so I could probably spend the next 27 minutes of our time on this question. So I'm going to resist that temptation, Kaylee and team, and just put a few, again, thoughts out there just relevant to our discussion today around recognition and really, again, trying to make sure that Tami and Katie have the spotlight to show you what actually happens in practice beyond what we're measuring. So that's my little prelude. But so I'll kind of take you another level into some of those patterns and the way that we look at it, which is if you think about engagement as the outcome, because those things around being motivated, around being willing to refer someone, around being loyal, those aren't actual like behaviors, right? Those are really the mindset. So what are the actual things that drive it? And that's really what we're looking at across literally tens of thousands of employers over, tens of millions of employees over the past 20 years. And we think about it if you kind of have an image of a pyramid in your head, the way that we would think about it is at the base of the pyramid becomes really about the individual employee experience. And from an individual perspective, it's, am I treated fairly when it comes to things like pay, benefits, work-life flexibility? And, what we continually see is if that is broken, it's actually hard to kind of move above that in the pyramid, almost from like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs perspective. And the other thing I would say in terms of patterns is that, especially when it comes to pay and benefits, those things are really important in the recruitment phase in the candidate experience, but actually become less of a driver of engagement and kind of better productivity as you actually move in the organization. So what happens is you move from that individual employee experience to then what's happening between that frontline manager and employee. And that's where you get into employees feeling respected, supported, being able to grow, and that day-to-day experience. And that's ultimately where we see one of the areas where we see recognition and appreciation really spiking in terms of a driver of engagement. And then the final piece is maybe think about if you have the individual layer, the manager layer, think about maybe the organizational layer, which are things that tend to be more under the control or influence of senior leadership. And so that comes down to things like the direction that the organization is headed in, having a sense of core values, having a clear sense of meaning and purpose in the work. And then on the other side of that, something that Tami was touching on, which we would think about in almost just like how does work actually get done in your organizations? So, which is certainly about communication, collaboration. Cross-functional, cross-departmental, and just frankly, not having a lot of friction, or we talk about actually the concept of goo in our organization where things just get gooed up when they get stuck, with where people are kind of struggling to be aligned or to communicate well. And so like all these things, it's not, it's not just one thing, obviously, right? It's kind of a whole system that fits together. And I think the last point I'll make, and then would be great to kind of zoom in to to Tammy and Katie's perspectives. But from one thing we are seeing from a recognition perspective is a little bit of a shift, I'd say, away from Big Bang, and more onto frequent, authentic, continuous recognition. So that almost reinforces all of those themes that we've been talking about. So not to say that the big celebratory events or the big awards that we all are talking about they're obviously awesome, but ultimately it's more about the kind of day to day and how employees are recognized for just the things that often don't get up to the spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I hear in my day to day, those big events, the Employee of the Year spotlights, that sort of thing, they're great to have. But the real impact is coming from that trickle effect of here's a
Yeah.
little recognition, thanks for their day to day doing this and that. And that's where you start to really feel that impact. But Tammy, Katie, I'd love to hear your perspectives on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we implemented last year a SFC 360, which SFC is, obviously the acronym for our company. And 360 means we care about our team members' whole life. So it's not just about your work life, because we know they're here to work and they're here to get a paycheck, but we care about you personally. We care about you professionally. We care about you financially, and we partner with our team members. We've created programs, we have tools, and we even do educational sessions weekly, for that matter, where we send out content that says, this month our focus is on fill in the blank. And we send all of our team members across the organization tips and tricks to let them know that we care about you personally. Another thing that we do is we try to coordinate, again, because we're spread across the country, different activities that everybody can participate in and be part of the greater organization. So we just finished up in the month of February our SFC biannual step challenge, where we did it through an app and people could sign in and they could join the SFC team, and they had the ability to track their steps and cheer each other on and maybe even jeer each other a little bit in a healthy way, or nudge each other to say, hey, great job. And it gives them the ability to then collaborate with each other, have a little accountability behind it too. And going back to what Dan said, and at the end, we sent everybody that participated, a card in the mail. Again, something so simple that says, thank you for participating in our step challenge, a little, trinket prize inside that they had that shows that they participated, so that they can go back to their work location and somebody say, hey, that's kind of cool. Where did you get that? And again, just something that's kind of simple and relatively inexpensive, so for them to have the ability to be proud and brag about. And so as we have grown, that has actually magnified extra, because we've had actually people now calling and saying, hey, when are you doing the next one of those, so that I can participate and be a part of a challenge. So again, the smallest things, like Dan said, it doesn't have to be at the end of the year, a big award. The little things throughout the year, to you let your people know that you care about them. Thank you for jumping in. Thank you for going the extra mile goes so far.
So I feel like we've
Absolutely.
talked a lot about like the different programs that people are doing, and it's always fun to hear about, all the little things that different companies love and teammates love. And I think, it makes me think of this important thing that even I still struggle. Designing the culture is not about control. It's about creating a frame.
We'll give her just a second here, just in case she comes back. Can you hear us, Katie?
Is this like the worst day of my life right now? I'm like feeling so passionate about. All right, I'm sorry, guys. It's about creating a framework where you let other people determine what it is. So for us, we experience this vast range of even regional cultures because we have people all over the country. So what our teammates in Southern New England want to do are not what our teammates in Texas want to do. And that can be very hard thank you, Krista. I appreciate your validation. That can be very hard when you have a team strictly focused on culture, because you have a feeling of like, this is what this looks like for me, and I feel like this is what the best thing is going to do. But the best thing that I think us as culture creators can do is say, hey, I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you some examples of how this works. And then I'm going to support you in executing that and bringing it to life in whatever way works for your team. So we have some initiatives that we do, what we say Esler wide. We have a few things that we do Esler wide, which is part of our giving programs. But a huge chunk of what we do is we have 2 local councils. So we have a window of giving council, which manages our philanthropic giving. And then we have a teammate experience council. And we meet with these councils every month. There's one person from each territory that's on this Esler wide council. And we share ideas about what people are doing. We share the initiatives that we're all participating as a company. But then we ask them, hey, what are you doing to activate our culture? How are you living with love? How are we say living the logo? How are you living the logo? And letting them have the freedom to create that in their own way. So being able to holistically zoom out and say, hey, we feel great about our culture. We are a top workplace, but that looks a little different for everyone. And I think it's important, especially I know there's probably some people on this call who are dealing with an international audience saying, let's focus in on our mission. What does that look like for us? How do we live these values? And then giving people the freedom to activate that in a way that feels right for their team.
I love that.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, I mean, even with the tech problems, that was a mic drop moment. What a great way to think of it. Honestly, such a great way to think about it because you're going to have regional, you're going to have international differences. And then even when we're looking at a smaller scale, different teams are going to have different things that are impactful and effective for them. So I think what you said of, giving the structure to have success, but then saying, hey, here's your free reins, be creative, is such a spot on way to do that. And now, Tami, Katie, both of your teams have actually earned the top workplace recognition. What were some of the intentional decisions yeah, a huge pat on the back there. What were the intentional practices that you guys set up to make sure that, that was going to be happening for you?
Well, we survey with cause. We have feedback loops. So I think that is one of the most important things that you can do with a survey is do not collect the data and do nothing with it. We don't want your teammates to feel like they're screaming into a void. What we have a very intentional structure. So we do the survey, we export the results, we meet with leaders to walk through the survey, and then they are expected to submit an action plan. What are the steps that you're going to take to make these changes? And some of it is low-hanging fruit. Some of it is like such easy things that you can do to make people happy. Like, I wish the break room had a better ice machine. Cool, we can do that. Some of it is bigger things that maybe are not attainable or not realistic for your department. But we ask leaders, you read your report, what are you going to do? And then we check in 6 months. Did you do what you said you were going to do? And we do a pulse survey. So we have a spring survey that's coming up soon, which is only like 6 questions or so. And then we have our fall survey, our top workplace survey, which is obviously much more robust. But it's a feedback loop. So teammates feel like what they say matters and that each response is read. We use NPS scores. We're tracking this year over year. We're looking at the individual. We're using AI to analyze these results. And we're very, very intentional about collecting the data and then doing something with it. Roxy says our managers held accountable for completing those improvements. They are. So their senior leaders, their general managers in each of these territories receive the reports from everyone on their team. You said you would do XYZ. They have their internal meetings on the local level, back to what I was saying about giving them the freedom to execute that in the way that they want. So we say, submit your action plans. That all comes to the people team, our talent and culture folks. We then disperse that data and we let them do the planning that they need to do on a local level, let them, huddle with their team to determine. I'm like leaning into this Mel Robbins philosophy this year, this like, let them, I'm like, let them do, even though sometimes I can be a control freak. So I think if you're not going to do anything with your survey, don't do it. Just do not do the survey because it will only make people more frustrated and it will only, your mission and values become performative. It's a poster on a wall. It doesn't matter. So don't do it unless you have a strategy going into it. You make a plan on what you're going to do with it. And then you actually do that. You need to set up dates. You need to build this out over the course of several months. Like this is not like send out the question, see what happens. It's like on this day, we're going to announce the survey. Then we're going to keep it open for these days. Then after this amount of time, the leaders have to submit their action plans. Then in 3 months, we're going to follow up. So it's really like a whole annual strategy for serving your teammates. Otherwise, I recommend that you don't do it.
Katie, just to build on that,
Accountability.
one of the things that because obviously we're talking to employers all the time and about when and how they're going to survey their employees. And a lot of times we'll hear employers talk about survey fatigue, which is I think it's probably something this group is familiar with. And what we learn when we dig in, what we learn is it's often actually lack of action fatigue, not survey fatigue.
I agree completely. And that's exactly what I was just going to say is like the teammates are fine to take a survey
That's
if
right.
they know something will happen. That it's not, oh, I hate doing a 10-minute survey. It's I'm screaming into a void. Nobody cares. Why am I doing it? So it's that accountability. And I love what Robin and a couple of other people said in here, and then communicating the success of the action plan. We heard you say ABC, we did XYZ for that. So it's a loop. It's not over once you get the results. It continues year after year. You're comparing it to years in the past. You're looking ahead. We had a drop in this section of the survey. We need to make some choices to improve that next year. So I mean, if you need to talk survey, Dan's your guy.
And you can see by your survey results year after year when you have more people participating and you have more positive comments, or even if you have the negative comments. Again, it's all areas to grow and develop. But then the team members don't feel fatigue. They don't mind doing the survey because if they like where they work and they feel they're being heard, even if they have something negative to say, if they know their voice is being heard and they know there's going to be an action or an attempt at an action, it may not be the action they're looking for, but at least an
Right.
attempt at an action to make a pivot. And again, how do you eat an elephant and all those cliches we all hear? Every little degree of a pivot at the end of the day makes a big difference.
And even just saying out loud, I hear you that you guys hate this. Unfortunately, we can't change that right now. But please know that I understand that this part sucks. Even just validating the concern is.
People just want to be heard and valued, like we said before, trusted, all those things. Absolutely.
Katie kind of alluded to this already, but the other thing that we see a lot that maybe is, I don't know if I would call it a misperception, but maybe just a missed opportunity is oftentimes what you're able to do is take what you're hearing in the feedback and align it to initiatives that are essentially already in motion. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's like if there's something that leadership was already planning or was working on, and the feedback serves as additional, you know, evidence input that that was the right thing to do, tie that in. So it doesn't, I think sometimes there's a sense that it always has to be some new big thing. Katie was already saying, like, it can be really small things. It can also be things that were already kind of on your roadmap or initiatives that you're already working on, and you're just iterating it, evolving it, tweaking it by tying it directly to what you heard from employees. And that's, we see that as a win because it's like, hey, here are these things that you're already thinking about. This is just giving you, more impetus to go and get it done.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, thinking about small things too, because we lean into this importance of the leaders have to live it. It has to come from the top down, but also like we're doing a lot. Business is hard. There's a lot going on. So we have to keep it simple. And that goes back to building systems, building the infrastructure. Culture just can't be a vibe. Like, oh, the culture is a vibe. It's really not. It's a system. It's an living, breathing organism that needs tending. But one of the things that we're really focused on in 2026 is leveraging the systems we already have. Like you said, Dan, it doesn't have to be a big new program. It's not a new this or that. It's not a fancy thing. It's, hey, I mean, for us, no plug. I'm not being paid to say this, but we do Energage. We do use Bucket List. Now I'm saying that I'm like, was this why I was picked? But I don't think that's why. And we also, I saw one of the sponsors is Beekeeper. So we did build an app with Beekeeper. And that has helped so much because everything's in one place now. You can use it as an appreciation platform. Every territory has their own stream. So what we're saying to leaders now is, hey, we did the work in the last couple of years. We did a lot of work launching programs, forms, structures. Like for me, like the less fun part of doing the tech and stuff like that. But now it's like, hey, all you need to do is log into the platform and do 3 things every week. Pick 3 recognitions that you want to do every week. Use the systems we have in place. Because I think for some people, it comes very naturally. Being a giver of appreciation comes very naturally to some people. And it doesn't to other people. And that doesn't mean that they're not inherently gracious humans. They just don't see the world through that lens. And it's the same thing that we were talking about earlier, where people accept gratitude in different ways, and people also expel that gratitude in different ways. So if you're the kind of person that you feel like you're really struggling with figuring out how to express that gratitude in a way that feels natural, like if you have to schedule the time, then like you do that. You put an hour on a Friday on your calendar and say, hey, I'm going to send some gratitude emails. I'm going to stop by some people's desks and just give them a little love. I'm going to give them a shout out on your intranet or your whatever it is, like if you're not I live to like praise my team. Like I love them and I'm so proud to work with them. And they probably are like half the time like, Katie, okay, we hear you. But if you're not that kind of person, that is not a problem with you. That's just a way that you experience the world. And you need to make those choices to say, hey, how am I going to be able to express this gratitude in a way that works for me, that I can keep it simple and build it into my workday?
And as you said, it has to be intentional. Like you said, for those that it doesn't come easy for, it has to be intentional. And sometimes, a little nudge is okay. And that's what we're here for. Because again, we're here to support each other. We're here to help each other. And we're here collectively, to be better together. And that's what creates your culture, your norm for your company. And what, again, it's not a feeling, it's a practice, it's an intention, it's a what is normal for you. And in some companies, culture, again, the word culture can always sound like it's something good, but sometimes culture is not good. Culture is what works for your individual company. So I love what you said about doing different things and allowing them to have different tools and do things regionally. Obviously, we have over 110 venues across the country, so they're all going to
over that, Tami.
They're all going to operate a little differently. They're all going to show their appreciation a little differently. They're, again, we're going to provide tools and help our team members realize they are part of one big unit, and we want them to know that they are part of something much larger than what they do every day. And at the same time, home is where your heart is, right? And the leader is the one that manages that location and makes them feel the value and the trust and the engagement and the empowerment and all that need. No answer is a bad answer. And we've used kind of a hokey, because our acronym is SFC. You see it, you fix it, and you change it, because every little change makes us better together. And we use the terms, I win with people all the time, because we believe it. It's not just who we say, it's what we do. We win with our people. We couldn't be the business we are today if we didn't have the best people. And the only way we have the best people is they have to feel valued, they have to feel trusted, and they have to know how very important they are to the overall collectiveness of the organization.
And especially, I know we kind of had talked about this before, Tami, like this generational culture divide. Mm-hmm. Where younger folks, I'm a millennial, I'm not a Gen Zer. I know maybe you guys thought that I was. No. But younger folks, mission-driven, values-driven atmospheres are worth it to them to take less money, to work in a company that they feel aligns with their values and that ethically they feel good about working somewhere. So I think you have to meet people where they are, certainly, but this is not just about the culture that's happening with your existing teammates. So much of what you're building is also a recruiting tool. So you're building organizations that people want to join. And if you zoom out and you take a look at your culture and you say, oh, I wouldn't apply for this job. That's why we use, for us, we take a good look at like the NPS, like how likely are you to recommend working here at Esler Companies? And that is an important number for us because we know that our best advertising for customers and for potential candidates are our existing teammates. I'm proud to work here. I'm proud of the products that we're selling. I'm proud of the work that we're doing. So, and one of the things that we've been trying to do better this year is to tell that story a little bit better and to use our career site and use our social media pages to really tell the culture of our story in a way that it will act as, act as an attractor for new talent. But I also think that when I know I've been on like calls like this or gone to conferences where you walk away and you're like, oh my God, I'm behind. I have to do all these things. And I think that it's so important to just say like, okay, maybe I'm not where I want to be right now with my culture. Maybe I need to make some changes, but like just start small. Just think about like one thing that you could do that you feel like would really just be like a beautiful, impactful thing that people would walk away saying like, that was such a nice thing that we did. Like just start small. Don't feel like you need to like build an app and launch company-wide programs and like do all of these things. Like just keep it simple and start small because, to what Tami said, like that genuineness is really more important than any of the other bells and whistles, really feeling like you are seen as a human and that it was intentional, the gratitude that was given to you or this appreciation program actually means something. So I think if you're kind of in this building phase of your culture or you're even reassessing right now, to just pick a few small things to say we're going to get really intentional about doing these 3 things really well. We're changing this entire thing. Like we're gonna read our survey data and say, hey, these are 3 things that we're gonna do this year. And that's it. Only do those things extremely well. And then continue building from there. Oh, Rebecca, I see. Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, that was honestly a great answer. Anything else we want to add in before we wrap up?
Thank you
I am
so
so
much for
sorry
all the
for all
comments.
of my problems here today,
Oh my
guys.
gosh. Yeah, I wish we got to respond to more of the
I know,
comments.
I
It
know.
was
I was
really
trying
cool
to
to see. I
read,
was
but
going through those, so apologies, I guess,
Mhm.
for the questions we didn't get to, but it was great.
Don't worry, we still
Candace.
have some time. So we'll do the wrap up really fast and then we can come back to the questions. I tried to save time by throwing up the feedback poll because I know it takes a while. So yeah, we can wrap up and then come back and do more Q&A. All right, Keely. Did you have one last wrap up question or did you want to pass it to me to start the wrap up process?
You know what? There was one really good question in the Q&A page. It's from Lynn. Lynn says, at what company size does culture require formal systems instead of informal norms? Which I think we touched on a little bit, but does anyone want to tackle this one?
I mean, like I was saying before, um, I think that it's always good to have a system. I think that it's good to have, even if it's something as simple as, hey, we're doing a monthly, employee of the month or something. Like I consider that to be a system. So certainly as you scale across multiple locations, it becomes more and more important to have that skeleton. But like I said, culture is not a vibe. It relies on intentional choices. So even if you feel like, hey, there's only 20 of us that work in this office, like it's nice to build out a calendar of appreciation. I consider that to be a program and a framework. It's nice to know what's coming in the months to come. It's nice to be able to. The other thing that's so important is if you have these perks and benefits, you have to market them. If you have a wellness program, if you have other special perks, you have to market them. Otherwise, people don't feel like they're important. So that's also part of a framework is saying, hey, okay, in the beginning of the summer, we're going to promote our tuition reimbursement program because people are going to be signing up for classes in the fall, and really like backing things out in that way. So I would say it doesn't, unless it's you and just you, then I think building a system in some way is always good. I think that system just looks different depending on how many teammates you have.
I also think it's okay to start small. You have to start somewhere. So don't think because you don't have a system and you don't have a calendar and you don't have a committee and you don't have 10 people on your team, it's okay to start small. Again, it's about being intentional with one thing at a time. Pivot that needle a little bit all the time and you will see the changes in your culture again by making sure that it gets a focus, it gets the intention, it gets the love that it deserves. I'll throw myself on the sword a little bit here. And so I put my personal cell phone number on my signature line to my email. So for
Same.
all 5,000 people that work here, if they want to call me personally on my personal cell phone, they can call. And when I know I'm not getting calls, that's when I give myself an atta girl. That's when I give myself an atta girl. That means my folks know that they can call me. It's open invite. I send out a quarterly newsletter as many companies do. Again, it's intentional. And again, in my quarterly newsletter, I always finish with thank you for everything you do every day to live up to our mission. Please know that you are what makes us who we are. And here is my personal cell phone number should you ever need to reach me for anything. And by showing there's a sincerity, I guess is where I'm going with this, is that people know the difference between I'm putting something together because I feel like I have to, then I'm putting something together because truly from my heart, this is part of who we are. This is who we are as an organization.
That's right, Nadine.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I think that wraps up our session. Becca, should we hand it back over to you?
Yes. Well, thank you all so, so much. And I think Nadine just kind of mic drop all of what we were thinking about the discussion, which is, that is like the human and human resources. So thank you to all three of you, all four of you for facilitating this discussion today and yeah, putting forward some really human-centric nuggets and giving us some tangible takeaways. I'll kick off the wrap up by starting with like a little recognition for all of you. You might have seen Sarah's talk in the first session. She has these really fun like recognition cards, and so I like to bring them around sometimes. And it's like pre-run recognitions that are just so nice. So, Kaylee, fearless facilitator, you are resilient and resourceful. Oh my goodness, why is my blur? Okay, there we go. For Dan, you are kind and considerate of the feelings of others, and that's always greatly appreciated.
Oh, Dan, you are.
Tammy, it's so clear that you genuinely care about the people who share your life, and we're all blessed to have crossed paths with you. And lastly, Katie, you light up any room that you enter with your infectious energy. So,
I'm gonna cry. Thank you so much for
Ah,
saying that.
yeah, no, thank all of you. And I know everyone in the chat was throwing down kudos entire session, so I'm not alone in saying thank you so, so much for your time and energy today. All
Well,
right, now,
I'm happy to be a part of it, and I know my fellow panelists feel that way too. So thank you so much for the invitation.
oh, thank you.